Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. Now on my last video, I showed you how I brushed rhinestones into a rhinestone template that I cut out of a really thick cardstock. And I was so happy and so proud at how well they brushed in. Well, it was late at night, and so that's all I did for that video. The next day, I started the video that you're going to see today, and I had an epic fail. So in the end, it all works out. I problem solved, I figured out what to do, and I made this shirt. Now here's the original template I started with. It's all torn up because I ripped it off the plastic sheet when it didn't work out well. And then after that, I did various experiments. I made all of these templates, and I finally came up with one that worked beautifully. So if you're interested in finding alternative things to that expensive rhinestone flock, especially if you're just going to use it 1 or 2 times, then keep watching the video. Now when I was making this template and brushing the stones in, I had 2 concerns. The first concern was the cardstock likes to kind of lift up. And while you're doing this, you need that to be really flat on the table or whatever you're putting it on, so that when you brush your rhinestones in, they don't seep under it. So one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use one of these chopping mats. You get 2 of these at the Dollar Tree. And this is something that the Baby's Booty suggested you store your rhinestone templates on. Now she uses flock and she sticks it to this. But I'm going to actually spray the back of my template with just some adhesive spray. Then I'll stick it down to this, and I won't have to worry about the cardstock lifting. But I said I had 2 concerns. So here's what the other concern was. I was concerned that when I used my transfer tape, my hot fix tape, I put it down on this, I was worried about if it would stick to this cardstock. So in addition to adhering this to the plastic chopping mats, I am going to go ahead and trim this down quite a bit closer to the design. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. So I'll go ahead and lift this up. Now, if I was just using this one time, I wouldn't waste one of these chopping mats. I would just do it the way I did it. But I could foresee using this design more than once. So here goes my pretty design. Go ahead and drop those off. So I'll start by cutting this down. Okay, so I'm going to take this to the other room where I can put it in a cardboard box, and I'm going to spray the back. Now the reason I'm going to spray the back of this instead of spraying onto the mat is because if I sprayed the mat and then laid it down, of course my circles would have sticky under them and it'd be hard to remove the rhinestones. So for that reason, I'll spray the back of this and I'll be right back. Okay, now that I have that adhesive spray on the back, that is not going anywhere. It's stuck down really nicely, and I'm ready to go ahead and put my rhinestones into place. Now, typically I would dump these out of the bottle, but they're just what I took off of the old template. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's go ahead and move some of those out of the way. I have way too many on that first G, but then I'm just going to start doing circular motions. Now this cardstock is very thick. I was upset because I couldn't find the packaging of it, and in my last video I told you I was going to get the exact weight of it. I think it's 110 pounds, but I'm not totally sure. So I'm just going to pick up the excess rhinestones and put them down into place in the holes. Now this next part is the part that I really don't enjoy because I have to get this transfer tape onto those rhinestones without having them kind of get sucked up or the static in it lift them up and pull them out of place. I'm going to go ahead and use this large piece. I'm not going to cut it down because I plan to reuse this. So I'll pick them up, put them on my shirt, iron them in, and then I'll put the backing back on it so I can reuse this. Now for this part, I keep it, I don't know, at least an inch above it, kind of get it set to where I want it. Have it somewhat like a taco, a little bit curved. And then once you're ready to go, you just have to commit. So here we go. And that actually went on really well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just press straight down, make sure I get them all into place. Now if there is a rhinestone or two or 4 or 5, whatever, some that shifted, let's say one of these rhinestones was outside its little hole, you can actually use your nail and through this hot fix tape you can shove it over. But these all look like they're in place just fine. So once I know they're in the right spot, I really like to push down. You can even use your brayer. And then once you think they're all adhered to this transfer tape, you're going to go ahead and lift it up. Okay, so that's exactly what I was worried about. I was worried about the transfer tape sticking to the cardstock, and it did a little bit right there. Let's see how this goes. That's why I trimmed it down, but this does not make me happy. So you're going to pull those up slowly, and then if they're not stuck, put it right back down, press on your rhinestones, and lift up again. Crap. If there's one thing about crafters, we are problem solvers. So here's what's left of my poor little template after I ripped it off that plastic backing. And so I think I had 2 issues with this. First of all, when I sprayed the back, I think some of that glue must have seeped into the edges of the holes. I'm sure it did, because I couldn't get all my rhinestones to lift up out of this. And then second, as you saw, the transfer tape, the hot fix tape, it stuck to this. Now this is a super heavy cardstock, and I got this at Joann's, so I started thinking, and I thought, well, this is uncoated. And I know there's coated cardstock out there. So the next thing that I did is I went to Walmart and I got some 110-pound coated cardstock. So here's the template I made from that. I also cut just a test pattern out of 65-pound stock, and then I found that the rhinestones didn't brush into it nearly as easy as the thicker cardstock, so I cut 2 and glued that together. They did brush into that fine. That's kind of a time-consuming thing though, cutting 2 templates. Then I also used some glossy Mod Podge and sprayed 2 coats of sealant on the front of this to see if maybe my tape wouldn't stick to that. Then the last thing I did is I took some glitter cardstock. Now this is by Best Creation ink. I've had this for quite a while, and I cut a template out of that as well. Now my stones are going to be really light, they're clear, so I did my cardstock out of a really dark card. Now before I put rhinestones into any of these, I want to do a little test, and I want to see if the transfer tape sticks to these, because I don't want the same fiasco that I had last time. Okay, so let's start with my original paper that I coated with Mod Podge. Again, I don't want to have to go through this step because number 1, the Mod Podge is not cheap. Number 2, I don't like spraying it and breathing that in, but I was curious to see if it would work. Okay, so I'm just going to put it right here, press down on it like I would if I was pressing on the stones, and peel it up. Okay, and it came up without pulling any of the cardstock up. Now, it is harder to get off this cardstock, than it is rhinestone flock, but it worked. So then let's move on to the coated cardstock. Now this is the 110 cardstock that I got at Walmart. Uh-oh. Okay, so I can tell that pulled some of the fibers off this paper. And it was harder to get off this paper than it was this. So that's a bust. Let's get a fresh piece. Now this is 65-pound cardstock, just something I had in my scrapbooking, supplies. And this is the one that I cut 2 times and glued them together because I wanted my template to be thicker than just the 65-pound. Oh, okay. That's not bad. That's coming off pretty easily. Okay, now there it did pull up just a little bit. Huh. So it wasn't bad. I think if you cut your template really close around your design and focus on putting the pressure where the stones are, it could work. And then lastly, let's try the glitter. Years ago, when I started watching videos on rhinestones, I saw somebody do this, and I was looking for their video the other day after I had my problem, and I couldn't find it. So I would love to give credit to that person, but I could not find their video. So let's press that down. Ooh, that comes up super, super easily. Okay, so this glitter cardstock, which is probably the most expensive of my alternatives, but still a lot less expensive than flock, I think that's what I'm going to go with because that comes up super easily. Perfect. Now I keep changing my mind on this. First I thought I was going to use a glue stick and just stay away from the holes, but I don't even know how well it's going to brush in yet. So let me go ahead and just tape it down with my washi tape. Now, just like I said earlier in the video, which is from a couple days ago, if this were just a template that I was going to use one time, I would not waste this plastic. I would just tape this down to my table. But I really feel like this is a template I could use time and time again. So if it works well, I will go ahead and glue this down to this plastic. Now, I always put way too many stones in my designs, but I find that they brush in more easily when I do that. Okay, these seem to be working really nicely in this glitter cardstock. Now, I had some other glitter cardstock that I got at Walmart, and I did not cut the template in it, but I was comparing the thickness to this glitter cardstock, and this glitter cardstock was thicker, so I went with it. I really feel like the thickness of what you're using has a lot to do with how fast you can get these stones to brush in. And I know it takes a little extra time, but I'm going to leave this in real time just like I did. Uh-oh, my stones are getting under my washi tape. It'll be okay. So I want to leave this in real time just like I did with my first cardstock template, because I think it's important for you to see really how long does it take. Because if this is going to take you a ton of time, then you may feel like it's worth it to spend the money on the actual flock. And for designs that I'll use over and over and over, I will cut it out of flock. All right, let's go ahead and brush all those extra ones off. And I think that next time I would probably use painter's tape if I were taping it down, because this washi tape isn't real strong and it's lifting, and so a bunch of rhinestones are getting caught under it. So do not use washi tape. Now, in a way, that's a good sign, because what that means is that this glitter cardstock does not hold tape down real well. And that's what I want when I put my hot fix tape down. I want it to come up very easily. Okay, so the majority of those went in really quickly. Now, if my process were better, and if I used painter's tape or something that would actually stay down, the amount of time I'd spend on this would be even less. Okay, so I'm going to look for the extra stones, put those in the holes that don't have anything in them. Now here's the other thing. With this washi tape, it's not holding it down real well, so my cardstock is lifting just a little bit. Okay, so I got most of the holes filled. You saw how quickly I did that. I will speed up through just fixing the stones that are not in the right place. And then we're going to try to lift this up with some hot fix tape and finally get this shirt done. So I'm just holding it about an inch and a half over. I have it slightly bent in the middle. Here we go. Oh, good. Now I see I had one that shifted, or I think I have an extra one in there I didn't notice. So I'll pull that off before I press this. So first thing I want to do is make good contact with the stones. Now let's see what happens. I might have a few extra ones up there. Here's one on the side here. It's not going to be a big deal though. There's not that many. Okay, I had 2 stones in one hole, and that's probably because this cardstock was lifting up, so I couldn't tell there were 2 in one hole. We'll see if that happens again. Yeah, it happened right there. Now these just didn't stick. Let me pull those up. Now I didn't notice I had one upside down and it didn't stick to my transfer tape. So after I'm done putting this on the shirt, I'll just have to do that one manually, which is not a big deal to have to do one of those. Not at all. Okay, so I just use some rhinestone tweezers and fix this from the back side, and we're ready to go. Okay, so I'm getting my heat press heated up to 300 degrees. First, I'm going to press on the word blessed because it's thinner. If I did the rhinestones first and then I tried to do the HTV, I don't think I'd make great contact with the HTV. So the first thing I'll do is go ahead and clean my shirt off with a lint roller. Then I like to have the top of my shirt, this collar, over the edge so that you don't put a lot of pressure on it. Then I always like to do a second pressing just for about 5 seconds. Then I also increased the temperature on my heat press. I bumped it up to 340, and I'm going to press the rhinestones for 25 seconds. Now don't wad this hot fix tape up. Find the backing, lay it back down, because you can reuse this a few times. Then the last thing I like to do, just to make sure they're stuck down really well, is give it one more good press for about 10 seconds. Now we are done, and this was painful to make, but I tell you, I learned a lot. Now the cameras never do these things justice, but that is beautiful. So thank you so much. If you stuck around all the way to the end, that is amazing because this was a super long video. But I appreciate it, and until my next video, bye-bye.